Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Bava Kamma. We are up to the final Mishnah in Masechet Bava Kamma, Perek Yud Mishnah Yud. Today's Mishnah should be Le'elu Nishmat Neria ben Svetlana Ranbai Veliyahu ben Burcha Israelov Chana bat Miriam Sason ben Ryan Yoshua ben Shifra Menuchatam beGan Eden Amen and Le'avdi ben Chaim Lechaim v'Derefua Shenemav Daniel Shalom ben Rosa Betoch Shach Olei Israel and Achlama Merav Binyamin Or Tzion Chai ben Dvorah. Often after a worker or craftsman has finished his work, some pieces of material are left over. The Mishnah deals with the question of which pieces may be kept by the craftsman and which must be returned to the owner. Mochin shakoves motzi arelu shelo, the shreds of wool that a launderer removes when he rinses wool. When a launderer rinses wool, a small amount comes off. They belong to him because very little wool is removed in this process and the owner does not care for it to be returned. Even if a certain owner does want the shreds of wool to be returned to him, the launderer may keep them since the vast majority of owners do not care about these leftover shreds. The attitude of this owner is not taken seriously, what we call batlad da'ato etzem kol adam. V'shasorek motzi are elu shel baal habayit, but the shreds that a comber removes after the raw wool is washed, it is combed and beaten with a stick to untangle it and prepare for spinning. So that shreds that the comber removes belongs to the owner because this process removes a significant amount of wool which the owner would presumably want to keep. Hakoves noten shlosha chutin ve'en shelo. After washing a woolen garment, the launderer takes out 3 threads at the edge of the garment. It was the standard practice of weavers to weave an extra 3 threads of another type of material at the edges of a woolen garment, so that the edges of the garment itself do not unravel in the laundering process. After washing the garment, the launderer pulls out these 3 threads and straightens out the edges of the garment so that it looks neat. These 3 threads, again, after washing a woolen garment, the launderer takes out 3 threads at the edge of the garment, and they belong to him because such a small number of threads have little use, and the owner is not interested in them. Yatel miken arelu shel baal habayit, but if he took out more than that, they belong to the owner because more than 3 threads are useful, and the owner would want to keep them. Meaning, if more than 3 threads were added by the weaver and the launderer removed them, the owner would want them all back, since this is a significant number of threads which he would find useful. However, if it was black on white, meaning if black threads were woven onto the edge of a white garment, the launderer may take all of them and they belong to him. Since black ruins the appearance of a white garment, the launderer may take all the black threads, even if there are more than 3. If the weaver added black threads to a white garment, he clearly intended for all of them to be removed, and the owner does not want them since they are of a different color. Now, the law regarding a tailor, if a tailor was given material and thread for use in sewing a garment, and he left over enough thread with which to sew, this is twice the length of the needle, if he evened out the garment by cutting off a piece of cloth that is at least 3 finger breadths. The opinion regarding the measure of a finger breadth ranges between 0.8 and 0.95 inches, which is 2 to 2.4 centimeters. So again, he cut off a piece of cloth that is at least 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths, which is fit for use as a patch. Harelu shel baal habayit, they belong to the owner because thread and material are useful in these amounts. Smaller amounts, however, may be kept by the tailor because the owner does not care about them. Now, the law regarding a carpenter, Masha Charash Motzi B'ma'atzad Harelu Shelo. The shavings that a carpenter removes when he scrapes wood with a plane belong to him. A plane is a scraping tool that is used to smooth planks of wood. They belong to him. Whatever shavings he removes, because they are so thin that the owner does not care about them. Ubakashil shel baal habayit, but the chips that he removes when he chops wood with an axe belong to the owner because they are large pieces that the owner would want returned to him. However, if he was working on the owner's property, all the wood, even the sawdust that falls when he drills a hole, belongs to the owner. Since the wood is already in the owner's property, he would not want it to be taken from him. Because the shavings and sawdust are already in the owner's yard and do not need to be carried there, he wishes to keep them for himself. Now, all the rulings of this Mishnah regarding which leftover materials may be kept by the craftsman and which one must be returned to the owner apply only in a place where there is no accepted custom. If there is an established custom, the custom should be followed, as the Rambam discusses in Echot Geneva, Chapter 6, Halacha 8. And that is the Rabotai of Mishnot Masechet Bava Kamma, Hadran Alach, Vadrach Halan, Masechet Bava Kamma. We continue now with Bezrat Hashem, Masechet Bava Metiza. Bava Metiza, literally the middle gate, is the second tractate of Seder Nezikin. The group of tractates known as the Bavas, Bava Kamma, Bava Metiza, and Bava Batra, are, according to the Amora of Yosef, not really 3 separate tractates, but 3 parts, each consisting of 10 chapters of a single large tractate called Nezikin, as the Gemara says, Bava Kamma, page 102a. Bava Metiza, our Masechet, deals with aspects of civil law other than damages, such as the rules for returning lost items, Hashavat Aveda, the obligations and responsibilities of Shomrim, people entrusted with the safekeeping of other people's property, the prohibition of Ona'ah, unfair pricing, the prohibition against taking interest on a loan, Ribit, the hiring of artisans, workers, and animals, the loans of objects for use, sharecropping agreements, rental of apartments, and various related topics, and which will be explained in each chapter when it comes to focus. We begin with Perek Aleph, Mishna Aleph. This chapter deals with disputes that have to do with finding lost objects. The following Mishnah discusses a case where 2 people come to court holding a lost object they found, and each one claims that he acquired it first. The Mishnah speaks of the type of lost item that may be kept by the person who finds it. The rules for which lost items must be returned and which may be kept by the finder are taught in the next chapter. Shnayim ochazin betalit, 2 people come to court holding onto the edges of a cloak they found in the street. Ze omer ani mitzatia, this one says, I found it and picked it up first and it is mine. Ze omer ani mitzatia, and the other one says, I found it and picked it up first and it is mine. Each person says that he reached the cloak first and picked it up, while the other person grabbed onto it afterward. Lifting an item is a type of kinyan, a formal act of acquisition, and therefore whoever picked up the cloak first becomes its owner. Or 2 people come to court holding onto a cloak they bought in a store. Zeomel kulashiri, and this one says it is all mine because the owner sold it to me. Vizeomel kulashiri, and the other one says it is all mine because the owner did not sell it to you, but to me. These 2 people were shopping in a store and were both interested in buying the same cloak. Both people gave money for the cloak, but the owner agreed to accept the money from only one of them. He does not remember now which person he agreed to sell it to due to the confusion of both people wanting the cloak and paying for it. The law in both of these cases is this one must swear that he owns not less than half of the cloak. And the other one must swear that he owns not less than half of it, meaning he does not swear to his claim that the whole cloak is his, since in the end he will receive only half the cloak. But he cannot say that he owns half the cloak since he claims that he owns the whole thing. Therefore, he swears that he owns no less than half. And they then divide the cloak equally. If it is possible to physically divide the cloak without the cut halves losing their value, they do so. If not, they sell it and divide the money. In the case of the bought cloak, each person receives half the cloak plus half of the extra money given to the seller. Now, since both people are holding the cloak, they are both in equal possession of it, and since we do not know who is the real owner is, the law is that the cloak must be given to whoever has it in his possession. Since they both have possession of it, each one receives half the cloak. Now, this follows the most basic rule of monetary law. We assume that a person owns whatever is in his possession until it is proven otherwise, what we call hamutzi mechavero alav haraya, the one who wishes to take money from someone else must bring proof. Since both people are holding the edges of the cloak and are in equal possession of it, and neither one can prove that he owns the other half as well, each one is assumed to own half of it. However, if only one person is holding the cloak, but the other one claims he found it first, the one holding it gets the entire cloak. Similarly, if they are both holding the cloak somewhere in the middle rather than at its edges, we view each person as being in possession of the cloak up to the point he is holding, and they divide only what still remains between them. However, the rabbis required that before taking anything, each must swear that he owns at least that part of the cloak that he will get. This is because the rabbis were afraid that people might simply grab onto another person's item even while the owner himself is holding onto it and claim falsely that it is theirs. They therefore decreed that one must take an oath before being given a portion of such a disputed item. If, however, one of them refuses to swear, the other one swears that the whole cloak is his and he receives the whole cloak. Now, the Mishnah considers a variation of this case. If 2 people are holding onto a cloak they found in the street, and this one says, the cloak is all mine because I picked it up first. And the other one says, half the cloak is mine because we both lifted it at the same time, and therefore we are both partners in it. The law is that the one who says the cloak is all mine must swear that he owns not less than 3 parts, meaning 3/4 of the cloak. Mervia, and the one who says half the cloak is mine must swear that he owns not less than 1/4 of the cloak. Zenotel shlosha chalakim. The person who claims the whole cloak is his then takes 3 parts, 3/4 of the cloak. V'zenotel revia, and the other one, the person who says half is his, takes 1/4 of it. Since the person claiming half the cloak agrees that the other half belongs to the one claiming the whole, the half certainly goes to him. The only dispute is about the second half. Since they're both holding onto the cloak and are equal possession of it, they divide the part of the cloak that is in dispute. Since they are both holding onto the cloak by its edges, they're considered to be in equal possession of whatever part of the cloak is in dispute. Therefore, they divide the second half equally. Therefore, the one claiming the whole gets the first half, which is surely his, plus half of the second half that is being disputed. Therefore, his total share is 3/4 of the entire cloak. The one claiming half receives only half of the disputed second half, so he receives 1/4 of the entire cloak. But before they do so, they must swear that they own at least the amount they are getting, as in the previous case. Although their dispute is only about half the cloak, the person claiming the whole cloak must swear about the 3/4 he is getting, not just about his part of the disputed half, the 1/4. If he would merely swear that he owns 1/4, he could be referring to the part that is surely his, not the disputed part. Therefore, he must swear that 3/4 are his, which surely includes his part of the disputed half. And that is the Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.